go get down to it. So today we are going to start by rewinding for just a little bit. Again, just kind of going over a few basics from yesterday. Miranda here, she's making some money. I'll put that back on. Okay, some of you are still trying to find this. 15, 16 hours as a cashier. She's working full-time in the summer. When it says full-time, how many hours a week is that? Okay, so full-time, I'm going to write it down here because I really can't see it in there. And in the summer, works 35. So what you would kind of have to see how this goes. Now, this is interesting. I didn't notice this until just now. Let me push this up so I can kind of bring you in on where I was like, wait a minute. So how much does Miranda make in a week? Okay, multiply the wage by the hours, 1560 times 35 hours. Miranda made $546. She was working full-time and working 35 hours per week. That's news to me. Because like you said, I think it's 40 unless they change this on me. Maybe they're all the UAW workers. I don't know. They're gonna go backward.
Maybe it's like one of those shifts where they just like round up your time. Maybe you work 3 days per 10.
It could be, and also again, I've been blending in some stuff from other country things, so it might full-time might be 35 and some. But when we speak it, we will be speaking 40 for the time being. So, but here, since they said she works 35, I get multiplying by the 35. You get your money, okay? You make that in a week. If I wanted to move it to a month, again, just a reminder, 4 weeks in a month. I just calculated the weekly, so we're going to multiply that by 4, and we can figure out how much you're making monthly. If I wanted to do yearly, I could multiply that by 12. So I have to have a little bit of a feel, though, for weeks into months, months into years, to be able to make that work. So you're like, okay, Hardy. Now this is funny. I'm just going to do this to partially make fun of it, and then I won't push you through this one. We'll go to the next page. This one is even funnier after looking at the last page. Haley makes $17.55 per hour at the local ice cream shop. Okay. She decided to work full-time. In the summer, works 30 hours a week. It's going down every time we go. Soon we're going to be down to 20 hours thinking it's full-time. But it's not. So again, all you would have to do is take your wage. In this case, again, we're going to ignore this whole thing saying full-time, because that, in no world is that full-time. So we'd be able to figure out what she made in a week. And again, turn that into a month, turn that into a year, okay, if you wanted to know. So just as a quick FYI, we're going to add one piece to this, which is why I'm actually doing this one. So there's 4 weeks in a month. So we can times that by 4. If somebody came up and just asked you, well, about how much do you make a year? Okay, here's our quick way to find a week and a month. And then if I wanted to do a year, you could either do times 12 months like we have here. That's going to be your most accurate way of going through. And I'll explain why that is. Because I got into a discussion yesterday about why am I getting a different answer if I'm doing weekly pay trying to stretch it to a year and monthly pay trying to stretch it to a year. Because if I look at this, there's 4 weeks in a month, there's 12 months in a year. So you're like, that's 48 weeks, but we know there's 52. So again, you're going to have some months with that 5th week that's going to stretch it a little more. This is more of an approximation. Because in reality, let's just take a peek at this too. in reality, if I did this for a year going by my weekly, because there's 52 weeks in a year, I'd take that times 52, and I don't get the same answer. Okay, there are even adults in this building that get confused by that. Because they're like, we get 26 pays a year. And when that extra week will pop in here or there, they're like, why am I getting less? Because you're not getting less, we're just stretching it out further. So when you're asked a yearly, hopefully you'd be given, hey, am I using months? Am I using weeks? If I'd forget to tell you, which is always a distinct possibility, I'd take either, okay? We're trying to get that jotted down in a way that works, though. But as we flip over to 11, okay, now we get something new in from yesterday. Overtime. Here we go again. Ashley's working full-time in the summer as a waitress and makes $14.33 per hour. If she works more than 40 hours in a week, she is paid time and a half. Now, I'm going to add a little something to this. For each hour over 40 hours. It doesn't mean if Ashley works 45 hours that she's making time and a half for all 45 hours. It's just those extras that you work over your full time of 40. Anything from 0 to 40, you get your regular rate. Once you go over 40, that's when you start getting the extra. So, and we can kind of look at the example they give us here, and we'll play with one too. If you take her wage times her regular hours, notice they didn't use 42, they only used 40. You get her regular wages. But then you take her wage times the number of overtime hours, 2 extras, times 1.5, which is going to get her an extra, half per hour she worked. That's your overtime pay. So regular pay plus overtime pay gives me her total for that week. Okay, so I've got to keep those separate between regular and overtime, or you're going to get fired as the bookkeeper for paying the employees too much money, which we don't mind helping our employees out, but we don't want to get too crazy. So let's kind of play that for one example. Like, Hardy, where at you? 12. I'm at 12. So Jace is making $15.97 per hour washing cars. He's going to work full-time in the summer, works more than 40 hours, he gets paid time and a half. Okay, 43 and a half hours. Remember, regular pay is still just the 40 to get our total. Overtime comes into play for anything over 40. So 43 and a half minus 40. There's 3.5 overtime hours. And I'm getting paid time and a half. Now, I will say something here as I get this up here and we calculate it. You actually could get this done in 2 numbers if you wanted to. So let's see here. 8384. You could, if you ever wanted to see, you could just multiply the $15.97 and say, hey, my overtime rate, my overtime wage is $23.96. That would work. But if you're like, no, I just keep using the same wage, I'll just multiply by the 1.5. There's nothing wrong with that. And then just add them up. So this plus this, let me get that in here. Okay, because I've got those 2 numbers already. And I can get my total. Okay? So straight overtime, like straight overtime, there's like non-straight overtime. There is, is time and a half for over 40 hours. That's the standard everywhere in the country, unless you're on salary. Different issue. However, there actually is one other type of overtime pay too that I want to make sure we cover. So you're like, okay, still getting overtime, yep. Negotiations, okay. Okay, time and a half. For those hours that you work over 40, over on page 13 here, because I went down a little too quickly. So time and a half is 40 hours plus. Double time hours normally come on holidays and weekends. Now, does that mean that no matter what job you have, if you work the weekend, you should be getting double your rate? No. No. If you're working regular retail jobs, you're still going to be getting the regular rate. But if you have a job that you only are supposed to work Monday through Friday and they're hoping to get somebody in for Saturday because they need to finish something, they might offer you double. If there's a holiday, it's Christmas, it's Thanksgiving, and they didn't close down the shop, they maybe say, hey, we appreciate you doing that. I'm going to give you double to try and help us out on this. If you ever have problems at your house with the plumber or the electrician or somebody coming on the weekend, it will be more of a rate than it is Monday through Friday. So that not as often as the time and a half, but still, if I'm doing all those things, this can get, I'm not going to say complicated, but there can be a lot of pieces at play in here, and you kind of need to be able to stay on top of this. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm not going to go crazy with this one. This first example, we're just going to walk through it because it's going to do all the things. 14, we're over on 14. So, here, Diane's weekly income, if she works 16 hours during the week at a normal hourly rate of $17.50, and 8 hours on the weekend at time and a half. Okay? That's how they work at her place. I don't see that often, but hey, it happens. So I look and I go, okay, so let's see. So 16 hours during the week times $17.50, her regular rate, would be $280. Her overtime income, which again is more of a special rate rather than overtime because you're not really getting overtime for 8 hours, but okay, we'll call it time and a half pay. Here, I'm not going to call it overtime pay because it's not over 40 hours. We'll call it time and a half pay though. So that would be 8 hours times her rate times 1.5 because she's getting time and a half. So that's another 210. And if I add those up, we get there. That to me is the most straightforward way of doing it. I mean, down here, it's the same idea. Normal plus overtime and then times 1.5, but then you start to wonder, do I add these first and then multiply? That gets to be a mess. If you do normal and then either overtime or time and a half separately, you're probably going to be in a whole lot better shape than you would trying to do it all these other ways. Okay? Now, you're like, are we almost there? We are. We are almost there. The crazy example. Calculate Don's weekly income. He works 20 during the week at normal, 4 hours on Saturday at time and a half, and 5 hours Sunday at double time. Okay, we're going to be raking over the weekend here. So I look, and I go, okay, normal income, 20 hours during the week at the normal rate of 18. Would be $360. 4 hours Saturday at time and a half. So 4 hours at $18 times 1.5 times time and a half. So there's another $108 that I get to tack on. And then I go a little further, and 5 hours Sunday at double time, which means I'm making twice as much. Multiply those up. I mean, it really adds up in a hurry. I mean, we did 5 hours on Sunday and made half as much as we did the entire week. That's kind of slick if you don't have anything going on, that is.
Connor brought them.
Nope, see, they're waving at me. No,
Over.
he's yep,
Back here.
yep, back in the corner. Sure.
Hi, Connor. Here it is.
Connor's like, what? So we're just going to add those 3 different types of pay rates that we have together and get to our answer. So you're like, okay, now we've gotten to a point that we got, income for the week, the month, the year, all these different types that are in here with our normal and overtime and all this other stuff. And the good news for you is that gets you to the end of the possibilities for right now, okay? So what we're going to do, one more flip ahead, because I promised I wouldn't do all of them. I already did more than I thought I was going to, but there were some nice twists in there. So over here, date's 25 today? That sounds right? Oh, dang it. Thank you. So we're going to play, since these are well spread out, on 19 through 21. And again, we've got to read carefully as we're doing these because some of them are a little bit different from what we would normally do. Like, you're like, well, what do you mean? Like, for instance, if you're looking at number 2, okay, we got an hourly rate, 41 hours at normal rate and 6 hours at time and a half. I don't know how they got away with the extra hour of giving normal, but we're going to roll with what they've got here, okay, with some of those type of things. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna let you play a little bit here. I'm just looking to make sure there's no other weird things going on before I say, here, go, and then you're like, no, that actually is pretty straightforward. So 19 to 21, I got keys up front and online. I will be floating around too. If I can jump in and help with anything, let me know, and we'll let you get that.